Hello students, today we discuss the continuation of biodiversity. In this second subtopic, biodiversity conservation. So, why should we conserve the biodiversity organisms, either plants as well as animals, including microorganisms? It is also useful and helpful for many different types of these metabolic activities and all. So, why should we conserve the biodiversity and all? Why should we conserve? Mainly the four main reasons. That's why we must conserve the biodiversity things and all. Why? Because one is the narrow utilitarian. That the specific biodiversity, either plants, animals and in human beings, they must be utilized either in the form of narrow utilitarian or broadly utilitarian, ethical utilitarian. Broadly and ethical and all. What type of things normally we utilize it in a narrow way and all? This is a narrow utilitarian, normally in the form of the food. So, from plants as well as animals, these human beings, they must be utilized in the form of the food material, as well as remaining animals also in that food chain, from one organism to another organism, it must be interlinked in the form of the food chain, food link and all, in different types of trophic levels and all. Like in globally, 85% of the food grains, it must be represented less than 20 species of the plants only. 85% of the food, they must be supplement less than 20 types of the different types of the plant species only. Then related to fiber, what is it by fiber? Either plants as well as animal in the form of the cotton, in animals in the form of the wool. So this fiber, it is also utilized for human purpose. Different types of the utilitarian activities and all. Then firewood, for charcoal, for regarding related to for burning or for cooking purpose. Even though at present also many of the areas they must be utilized in the form of the charcoal. Like firewood, it is also one among the narrow utilitarian and all. Then drugs and all. So these are related to plant materials and all. Then drugs. So 25% of the drugs, it must extracted from plant material only. But these 25% of the globally, worldwide, drugs which extracted from plant, in that one, in that specific 25%, different types of the plants are utilized and all. But in local, in tribal, or some many different types of the areas, even though throughout the globe, 25,000 different types of the plants utilized directly for removal or as well as controlling of different types of the diseases and all. In this 25% of the drugs, it must be represented 120 different types of the species and all. (120 species of the plants), but 25,000 different types of the plants directly utilized for controlling or recovering of different types of these diseases and all. 25,000. Directly they must be utilized, like in the form of homeopathy directly or in the form of indirectly, but direct utilization and all. For example, neem, nimbin, it must be utilized, as well as Asimum, it is also directly utilization and all. Such type of, as well as Datura, such type of these drug containing of the plants, it must be utilized in direct manner and all. Then, along with this one, industrial purpose. In industrial purpose, like latex, as well as resins, such type of this material, latex, resins, gums, dyes, like different types of the materials, it must be utilized or in the form of this scent, all these in the form of industrial purpose. It is also utilized and all in that plant material. Then, along with this one, it is also utilized in the form of this one, the timbers and all. Timber. Timber in that sense, in the form of the wood. These timbers, they used in the form of the wood material, like for the sake of furniture, as well as along with the furniture, it is also utilized in the form of these different types of musical instruments. Then that sports instruments. In such a manner, these timbers are utilized and all in a different manner and all. So like this, this narrow utilization, narrow utility of these materials and all. Then in what way? Broadly utilitarian and all. The broadly utilitarian, that's why it must be conserved. Because of all these different activities, all these differently it must be utilized and all. That's why it must preserve or it must conserve, protected and all. Then how broadly utilitarian and all? The broadly utilitarian, then biological pest control. That means predation and prey and all. Like that, biologically, naturally, it must be controlled from one to another and all. That is, it is broadly utilitarian. Among these one, majority, it must be present of this one related to this aesthetic sense. It is also helpful for aesthetic, for joy, for happiness, by observing, by seeing in specific garden areas and all, on different types of the flowers. Then it regarding related to aesthetic values. That's why it must protect and all. Then nutrient cycling. With the help of nutrient cycle, then only the carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, phosphorus cycle, sulfur cycle, all it must be in a normal and balancing manner only. If it is any imbalancing, suppose less number of the plants, automatically this cycle, it must be disturbed. Then it may be causes to the global warming. Then automatically affected to the number of these heterotrophic or related to consumer organisms only. It is also protect the climatic conditions and all. It must be protect the climatic condition like sea, water as well as terrestrial, different types of the ecosystem, especially forest areas. It must protect the different types of the climatic change without badly affected of this one. So if it is present proper amount of forest area as well as without pollution of the oceanic water and all, like oil spills, such type of these things and all, then it must be protected, it must be maintained proper amount of the climatic condition. Then oxygen, it acts as a major role and all. This oxygen, you know, in that hospitals also, if the person unable to take proper amount of breathing, they must be purchased oxygen cylinder and inserted and all. There is also mostly it must be that economically it is also maximum it must be utilized and all. But for naturally plants it must be given through photosynthesis process oxygen and all. like that manner. Suppose in that tropical Amazon and that tropical rainforest, it must be give 20% of oxygen on our global, on the earth and all. In that one, in the maximum it must be provided and all. Suppose the tropical rainforest, whenever restricted, automatically the percentage of availability of oxygen in our surrounding, it will be reduces, that may be increases to the carbon dioxide, pathetic gases and that may be causes to the pollution, then automatically disturb to the total biodiversity and all. That's why we must protect the biodiversity organisms and all. Then it also protected from floods, as well as it is also protected from floods and all. If it is the proper amount, there is no availability, there is no such type of natural calamities also, they must be protected and all. Then pollination, it is a major and natural thing and all, it must be going on. What is the cost of the pollination for every, which it must be takes place, if it is estimated, suppose if you do human activities, human being for pollinating from plants to plant like this manner and all, they may be estimated $117 billion and all. If it done the pollination and all, so this much cost of rupee, this much money, it must be saved from nature through pollinating agents. Naturally, it must be takes place and all. Then, like this, in many different types of the aspects, it must be utilitarian, it must be utilized in broader manner and all. That's why it must be protected. Similarly, ethical value. Ethical value means nearly million, it must be sharing of the human beings and all. Million of the both plants as well as animals and all. Whether it is direct utilization, directly useful or non-beneficial and all. Do not destroy any type of the organism voluntarily. So that's why directly contact, directly attachment, directly sharing more than million of the species and all, both plants and animals. And that's why we never destroy directly or indirectly such type of these organisms and all. That is also act as a vital role. That's why minimum ethical value, minimum ethics, it must be preserved as a human being. That's why do not kill. Suppose one snake is going on, don't kill unnecessarily. Why? Because maximum number of the snakes are non-poisonous one. So voluntarily do not. If it is poison, if it is harmful, then it must. Otherwise, until yet, do not kill such type of the organisms and all. That is example only. So these are the either narrow, either broad, either ethical, minimum. These particular aspects and all, we must protect the biodiversity and all. That's why, what are the ways? What is the ways protection of the biodiversity and all? There are two important ways are there. One is the in situ protection, another one is the ex situ protection. That is in situ protection. How to conserve? There are two methods to conserve. One is the in situ, another one is the ex situ. In situ on this side. On this side means, that means natural protection. Suppose if you protect one specific wild organism, that is tiger and all, not only protect the tiger, whatever the things, whatever the plants in that specific forest area, it must protect throughout the forest for the sake of protection of one animal, to protect all these forest area. Then only it is supposed to protect that specific animal and all. So in situ protection is the on-site protection. That means natural protection. In this, what type of organisms naturally it must be protected and all. Second method is the ex situ, off-site. That means other than natural habitat and all. That means artificial protection. In that ex situ protection, apart from this one, cryopreservation also is there, as well as tissue culture method also is there. Such type of things also it must be present and all. That is related to the off-site. That means instead of in situ, ex situ protection and all, that regarding related to that particular aspects and all. So now discuss about in situ protection, that means on-site natural and all. What type of species naturally it must be protected and all? The species which are richness, the species which are endemic, the species which are threatening, the species which are endangered, vulnerable, such type of organisms, either plants or animals, it must protect and all. Suppose here, hotspots. So, biodiversity hotspots and all. So, Norman Meyer scientist explained about this one in 1988 related to hotspots and all. Hotspots in that sense, the area where high amount of, high richness of that specific plants and animals are present in that specific area, but endemic organism. What is the meaning of endemic? In that specific area only that organisms are present. No more in the world that organism may not be present. That the specific areas of the areas normally scientifically we call as biodiversity hotspots and all. So how many total number of hotspots are available? Hotspots are present in our globally and all. So primarily it is present very less number and all. Later it must be total number of the biodiversity hotspots in the globally. There are 34 total in our globally. 34 hotspots are present and all. So in these hotspots, less than 2% on our Earth surface and all. These 34 hotspots, it cover less than 2% of land surface. But it covers very less. But maximum number of the species, endemic species are present. Related in our globally, in the world wise 34. But how many very important related to in Indian and all? There are 3 biodiversity hotspots are present and all. That is related to 3 biodiversity hotspots in India. Western Ghats as well as Indo-Burma region. That means from Bhutan to up to Myanmar. Now it is called as a Myanmar and all. Then Eastern Himalayas. In these specific areas, normally it represents of this one. In these specific areas, normally they found. But according to Norman Meyer, later 1991, what he estimated 0.5% of the species are the endemic species. And that means 1,500 species are endemic and all. 0.5%. That means 1,500 species are this one. Are these related to in these specific areas? That means these biodiversity hotspots. This one among these one protected areas and all. So where it will be protected, some protected areas. One among the protected areas related to biodiversity hotspots, that means natural and all. In these Western Ghats, normally where it is present in our country, Western Ghats are present in Karnataka, Maharashtra, Kerala, towards that Sri Lanka, it must be moving and all. It is spread 1,600 kilometers. Then up to 500 meters of the height of the sea level and all. From sea level, it must be present up to 500 meters height and all. It is spread 1,600 kilometers. What type of organisms are protected there? Normally, it protected, that is amphibians, mammals, reptiles, some of the flowering plants, even though butterflies also. This type of the organism naturally, normally or legally it must be protected and all. So these in Western Ghats and all. Then related to Indo-Myanmar region, in that Indo-Myanmar it begins from Bhutan up to Myanmar region and all. It is normal level when it is present, but naturally it must be protected. Primitive flowering plants and all. Primitive flowering, that means angiospermic plants are protected. That means magnolia. Magnoliaceae. So primitive flowering plants are protected in this specific. Remaining also is the maximum endemic magnolia, primitive angiospermic flowering plants are there that protected. Eastern Himalayan region, there 3169 that specific dicot species are present and all. In this area 1369 dicot species. The dicot endemic species are protected in the eastern Himalaya. It is also little bit very cold. Rather than plants, less amount of the animals are present in that specific area and all. So related to in situ protection, there it must be protected. They are protected in the form of the hotspots. In the form of the hotspots, it will be present and all. But in these hotspots, it cover very less area. But how much percentage of species are present? In this, less than 2% are present, but it covers 44% of the species. More number of less area, but endemic. That's why it must be protected in that specific area and all. One among the reason and all. That is different types of the hotspots and all. Then in this protected area, now we discuss about related to protected areas. In these protected areas, how many total number of protected areas are present in our worldwide? So according to WC, according to World Conservation Monitoring Center, World Conservation Monitoring Center, World Conservation Monitoring Center, 37,000 protected areas are present in globally. 37,000 that protected areas are present. What are the protected areas in situ protection and all? One among these hotspots related to endemic high rich species are present and all. Then other than this one, the protected original protected areas, other than it is only endemic high rich amount of the species only. Then endemic species there, but here protected areas normally it consider national parks as well as biodiversity reserves, then wildlife sanctuaries. Wildlife sanctuaries, along with this one, sacred groves. It is also present. So, these specific things are natural protected areas and all. So, whenever they give question, what are the specific area where specific that species diversity will be richness as well as endemic species, then your answer is the hotspots and all. Other than this one, natural protected areas, that is the sacred groves, national parks, biodiversity reserves, wildlife sanctuaries, it will be present. But what is the difference between sanctuaries as well as national parks? Both are natural, but national parks, it must be protected both plants as well as animals, flora and fauna. But sanctuaries, it protected only fauna, that means animals and all. But there in national parks, there is no permission to give that harvesting, that forest areas, all these things and all. But in this area, in these sanctuaries, they allow permission for grazing, for forestry, for harvesting. It is also give permission to the private organizations also. But there is no organization. Very simple. National parks, it protected both plants and animals. Sanctuaries protected only animals only. But they are not permission allowed to the grazing. But here permission to the grazing related to sanctuaries and all. Total worldwide it is present and all. Then what about India? How many number of protected areas are present in India? So in India, so according to textbook, they have given 90 national parks, then 448 wildlife sanctuaries and all, wildlife sanctuaries, then that 14 biosphere reserves and all. So whenever they give the question, how many number of national parks are present in India, then you write the answer 90. Number of wildlife sanctuaries, you write 448. Number of biosphere reserves, 14 only. Then instead of that one, if they ask what is the recent number of in Indian that national parks are, according to textbook this one, but in recent one it will be present. 100 national parks, then 551 sanctuaries, 18 biosphere reserves and all. But in recent studies they give, if they give question according to recent studies, what is the total number of national parks, then you put 1. Without asking recent, then you put only 90. According whatever they give in textbook, that only must follow. If they give recent, then only you follow this one. Like this, it will be present and all. Related to national parks and all. In that 90 national parks, what is the first national park that they give question and all? Jim Corbett National Park, 1936 and all. That is the first national park. Jim Corbett, 1936. How many number of national parks are worldwide heritage? It is world, that is in globally they consider, the world consider heritage centers. The world consider in heritage centers and all. How many number it will be considered into the worldwide? It will be present in 3 national parks and all. That is Kaziranga, Kelidu, Manas. So these specific areas normally they consider the world heritage centers and all. If they give question, what are the specific national park they consider related to the world heritage? They consider into the world heritage national parks and all. Then you write Kaziranga National Park, Kelidu National Park, then Manas National Park and all. In this specific, what is the first one means? Jim Corbett National Park and all. Then related to in this biosphere resource and all. What is the total number of biosphere reserves present in the worldwide? In the worldwide, 404 biosphere reserves are present. 404 total number of biosphere reserves. In India, it is present 14. According to textbook, but recent studies they give there is 18 biosphere reserves and all. But what is the important use of biosphere reserves and all? That is very important. According to there is man and biosphere, they related to MAB. Man and Biosphere in 1975. Actually it established in 1971, but Biosphere Reserve with the help of Man and Biosphere through UNESCO, they must be said about total in the world 404, but in India 18 are present and all. In that 18 regarding related to how many number of Biosphere Reserves related to, they represent as this one, that world, that heritage centers and all. In that biosphere reserves in our country, that world heritage centers. In our Indian world heritage centers, among these total number and all. In this one, they represent Nanda Devi, Nilagiri, Sundarban, Gulf of Mannar. So these specific 5 related to that world heritage centers and all, they consider along with national park also. Apart from this one, they are also considered regarding related to national park, not only biosphere reserves but also heritage centers are related to, it is a biodiversity related to biosphere reserves and all. Especially biodiversity reserves, that means biosphere reserves, there it must be protected related to, that is genetical diversity. Normally what type of organism, what type of things, both plants and animals, naturally it will be takes place under, naturally it involves regarding related to genetical diversity, protected into the multiple genetical diversity. But each and every that biodiversity reserves under, in these biodiversity reserves there will be present different zones are present and all. In biosphere reserves it will be present interior, that is the core zone. Innermost in biosphere reserves, innermost core zone, that means natural protection, legally protection of the natural, that specific organism, both plants and animals, and core zone, that means the human being not given to the permission. So in this specific area, the human activities are completely absent and all. That means they may not give permission to going on that specific areas and all. Then this is the core. Then the broader, this specific area, that is the buffer zone, it covered to the buffer zone, very minimal human activities for the sake of research, for the sake of education. That specific activities only, the human activities are, they give permission and all. Then beyond that one, it is present transitional, that is transitional manipulation zone and all. Here irrigation are related to different types of the things like agricultural, it will be present. All these human activities, it is ready to give, but without destruction, without destroying that specific diversity organisms and all. Even though one can give permission, different types of the activities, especially tourism, as well as different types of activities, agricultural, different types of these activities, it must be give permission, but without harmful effect this one. But manipulation, very important, each and every biosphere, the core zone may not give permission to the entering of the human activities and all. So free from, there is no particular permission that specific human activities and all. That partial human activities, buffer zone for the sake of research in that specific and all. That complete transitional and all, this specific area and all. Then apart from these biosphere reserves, the last and one related to sacred groves and all. In this sacred groves, in this specific sacred groves, it is present in our country different types of the sacred groves. Sacred groves in that sense, the local, that tribal as well as particular community, they must be protected in that the surrounding area of this one. If it is surrounding of this area, so how in that surrounding area they must be protected regarding related to for the sake of the praying. Suppose either animal, either plant, they are praying. In that manner, they are not allowing permission to taking such type of the plant, such type of this, any type of the organisms and all. In that sacred groves, especially in our country, like Aravali region, there is one type of the sacred grove and all. Then apart from this one, it is also present Karnataka region. In Western Ghats, some of the areas of Karnataka as well as Maharashtra, there also it must be protected as a sacred grove and all. In this one, along with this one, it is also present in Chandan as well as in that Chandan related to Madhya Pradesh area and all. In these specific, in different types of the areas in sacred groves, apart from this one, many others are present and all. In this specific area, they must be protected naturally in the form of this one. Suppose if they ask how much percentage of the organisms it must be protected through with the help of the diversity hotspots and all. If you protect continuously biodiversity hotspots, how much possibility percentage to protect either plants or animals? It may be possible 30%. Even though maximum and less area, if you protect continuously, then it is possible to control, to preserve, to conserve 30% of the organisms. That is related to natural protection of the organism. Okay. Remaining we discuss in next class. Okay. Thank you.